Welcome to Bat Therapy, psychology of Batman, superheroes, and other comic book characters. Be a fly on the wall or a bat in the cave, listening in on a friendship built out of a love for talking Batman, comics, and the everyday struggle to achieve mental health and happiness.
We are your hosts, clinical psychologist Dr. Amelia Brown and educator and comic aficionado Keaton Hopkins. Don't forget to follow us on YouTube and social media and find our Patreon at patreon.com/battherapy.
This podcast is about providing education and understanding and is not a replacement for mental health treatment or support. If you're needing help, go to bat-therapy.com for resources. Who's going to do it?
You have failed this city.
All
right.
Oh, Arrow.
Yes.
How I love. Well,
today,
season 1 I loved.
Yes. Today I am super excited to be talking about a rich billionaire and his black driver.
Oh my God. Okay, so I have to say it, and I'm sure you noticed, because I noticed.
He noticed.
Oh my God. So, okay. I think this show came out right when they were getting better about diversifying cast, but they didn't understand the nuances yet. So I swear, every single white main character had a black sidekick. Every single one. Every single one.
Yeah, even Felicity got one. Like, what's his
that one just takes a while.
Mr. Terrific comes in, who's like his own superhero in and of itself. Oh gosh, it's so
like, after the
because Laurel has a black friend in the law. It's no.
I was like, oh my God, I don't remember this.
At least Detective Lance's boss is black. His boss is black. It's like, hey, there we go. There's one.
So many.
But also, so this show is a lot of fun because it came right off the heels of Smallville. Like, Smallville ended, and I swear Arrow started like maybe a year or two later.
Oh, I didn't realize it was that quick of a succession.
I think they were because Arrow, I mean,
Smallville lasted a long time, so that makes sense.
Smallville ended 2015. Ended 2015, so I think Arrow was like right there with it, to the point that a lot of people were shocked that they didn't cast the same guy as Arrow, and they kind of did a grittier, darker, more Batman-esque reboot.
So here's the thing. I love Arrow. Why do I love Arrow? He is almost Batman.
He's basically Batman. They even, oh my gosh, they bring in Ra's al Ghul season 2.
Yes,
and the Lazarus
Ra's al
Pit.
Ghul, the whole thing. Later on, Felicity, she's essentially Oracle. I mean, it's Oh yeah, he's essentially Batman, and that's why I love him.
Team Arrow, and it's just the show itself is just really funny because Oliver is going around as the Green Arrow. And everyone's trying to figure out who he is. Meanwhile, his sidekick, John Diggle, is running around, no mask whatsoever, being constantly called both John and Diggle loudly in every scene. And it's like, I wonder who Green Arrow could be. Like,
I mean, even without Diggle there, which we'll have to talk about Diggle because he is such an important part of the whole hero thing.
I love him. I love him.
But I love Diggle so much. He's really the only character who I love the entire time. But I mean, the timing with the arrow is so, the hood, I guess, in the beginning is so ridiculous. And I he tries to play it off a different, but like so many times you just think, really? Come on, everybody.
He's so bad at pretending to not be Green Arrow, too. Like, every time you see him, it's like, oh, it's Playboy Oliver Queen. What's he doing? Frowning and staring off into the distance. like every single time. He does not do the Bruce Wayne persona well at all.
So let me tell you, Bill, so my husband, for anyone who's forgetting, Bill, the tech wizard behind the podcast, I'm watching Arrow and
He's our
I'm
Felicity.
yeah, he's our Felicity. I'm like halfway through the season. He starts asking me like really basic questions about what's going on. And I turn to him and I go, "I'm sorry. This man has watched all of those terrible Marvel shows
Yeah.
that no one watches. He has not seen Arrow. He's barely seen any Flash. So needless to say, I turned to him and I went, "You have failed this podcast."
Good.
I was like,
Good.
"How dare you?"
This is a DC podcast with Marvel sides.
Yeah.
The
It's
entree.
appalling.
The entree
I
is
know.
DC. And
I could
sometimes
not
we
believe
have
it.
Marvel mashed potatoes or Marvel
There you
green
go.
beans, but
Yeah.
never Marvel steak. Um,
I know. I was
it's
appalled. I was appalled. He has seen more of it now, obviously, as he was there as I did my homework.
but yeah, it's so funny because Arrow has a special place in my heart because it did do the superhero show very well. One thing
Yes.
that I had not gotten used to when I went back and rewatched it though was just the long seasons. It's like 23 episode
So
seasons. And
many.
I've gotten so used to Disney's 6 episode
Uh-huh.
miniseries that
Yep.
goes that's too fast paced and not
Yep.
and like, oh, I'll watch it in the morning, the whole show. I'll watch it in the
And
morning
that's
and
my
then I'll
thing.
eat lunch, right?
Yeah. So these are so long. If anyone hasn't watched these in a while, like yeah, it is so these seasons are so long. It takes forever to get through. And also I agree that Disney is too short. Like why can't we do like 12 episode seasons? I feel like that is
And,
perfectly respectable.
and what makes Arrow longer too is they keep doing flashbacks to what he was doing on the island to the point that it gets ridiculous because they're still doing island flashbacks and we're in like season 5. And at this
Okay.
point,
Okay.
he's not
That
even
gets
on the
ridiculous.
he's not even on the island anymore. Apparently, instead of being on the island, he spent some time in the Suicide Squad. He fought people in fighting pits in Russia. Like he did literally everything. And
Except stay on
then
the island.
right, right. He got off the island and he was like, "Nah, I don't want to see my family. I got to go to Russia and drink this vodka real quick. And the
So
vodka might be poison though. And then I got to fight this guy." Like it's it's such an
it gets
adventure.
ridiculous.
It's
It
such
gets
an
ridiculous.
adventure.
So I agree with you that the first few seasons I love, I don't think I've seen the last few seasons. So
Yeah,
I totally am with you with that. And I loved what they did with this season 1. I thought it was such a cool way to try and tie psychologically what's going on with him between the present and the past and how they did these flashbacks. They almost did it sometimes they made it seem like literal flashbacks where he's like kind of reliving things or they had these really cool ties to his memories where they kind of sometimes play with this idea of like hey is he having some trauma responses that he's
yeah.
struggling with and I found that to be so cool and I agree with you that at a certain point after a few seasons things got ridiculous.
The Arrow show is so much better than Green Arrow in the comics. Green Arrow in the comics is actually, it seems like he's actually closer to who Bruce Wayne pretends to be. Like, he
Mm.
constantly cheats on Black Canary. He has kids running around out there that is like, oh wow, I didn't know I got you pregnant. Like, he's just like,
Ugh.
he's a skeevy guy.
I didn't know about that
Yeah,
part.
he's not,
Gross.
he is not the best. But my wife, Colleen, she's like a huge, she like Green Arrow was one of the first comics that she really got into. And so
Oh.
she knows a lot about him. And then she also knows a lot about like Birds of Prey, which that's where Black Canary comes in. And like all of like there's sometime like there's some I feel like I remember one storyline where Green Arrow like cheats at the wedding reception. Like he's like
Yeah.
he's cringy. He's not like
So
yeah.
I didn't know those bits. I've seen like on Justice League and Justice League Unlimited.
He's great
I
in that.
like I love him in that. I totally agree. He's got this vibe like that Bruce Wayne persona. I love his wit. I love how he doesn't take things seriously, but also kind of cuts through the shit,
Yeah.
really, with stuff. And I remember there were some storylines with that too, where he's one of the catalysts in terms of um questioning how far do you let superheroes
Yeah.
superhero. So
Yeah.
there was some super cool stuff with him there. And then I liked his character too in Injustice, which I felt was a
Mm-hmm.
similar character. So I didn't know about the skeezy side. That's a bit
Yeah,
unfortunate.
and I think he's definitely gotten better in the comics now, but past Green Arrow, it's like, dude, stop. Like I do enjoy the fact that you just saved those people's life and that you're a pretty good crime fighter, but like stop cheating on your wife. Like can you can we not have that as your flaw? Like that's kind of,
So arguably though, that's not a bad way to go in terms of writing characters more realistically, because
that's fair. I'll
we
give you
want our
that.
heroes looking nice, slick, and pretty. But just because you're good at saving people doesn't mean you're good at being a faithful spouse or
That's true.
partner.
And
Those are
Batman's
two very
only
different
faithful
things.
to Gotham City. Like Batman is different. He's
Well,
like, if I'm
Batman
cheating
doesn't
on you,
commit.
it's because I just gotta go beat up the Joker. I'm
It's
sorry I
true.
missed
Yeah.
our anniversary. I had I he showed up, he had that question mark on his
Yep.
chest. He asked me
Yep.
questions. What was I supposed to do?
Yep. If he's ditching you for
I had to break
vengeance.
his legs and throw him in prison after I answered his riddle. Now we can celebrate our anniversary.
Exactly. If he's just not going to commit to you.
Right.
But it sounds like Green Arrow maybe commits a little too
Yeah.
much, more than he can handle. But yeah, I mean, like it's kind of realistic. It's funny because we'll think, oh, this person is has such a great character to them. They must be a wonderful human being because they shoot bad guys with arrows and do all this
Well,
stuff. But actually, those two things are pretty separate.
and they set Arrow up this way too, because you're thinking to yourself, like, okay, he's dating Laurel Lance,
Mm.
and then he goes off on on his yacht with his dad and another woman, and it's like, oh wow, he's cheating
Yeah, how
he's
terrible.
cheating on how terrible, and then it gets worse
Yep.
because it's like who's he
Just
cheating
you
with?
wait.
Her sister. I'm like, oh no,
Dude, and
that's the
can we
Green Arrow that I remember.
and can we talk about the incestuousness of all of this stuff? Okay. So, he's dating Laurel, then he cheats on her on his yacht. He doesn't go like have dinner or even just sleep with her sister. He takes her on a trip in the ocean.
Yeah,
Like, they end up on a random island somewhere no one can find him. So they go far out into the ocean on this yacht with her sister.
yeah.
He comes back. She's hooking up with his best friend.
Oh
Okay, they thought he was
yeah,
dead, but still. So Laurel is hooking up with his best friend,
which I
and
don't
then
falter for.
no, I don't fault her for it, but then he
I
tries to
know.
get back with her, and then he doesn't. And then he tries to get back with her, and and so he ping pongs her around. She's finally done being ping ponged, but too bad his best friend's dead now. Oh, and now her sister's back, so he's got to
And
hook
then
up with
he
her
goes back
again.
to hooking up with her.
Oh my
And the
god.
entire time Felicity's like, I wish he'd be with me. And I'm like, but you can do so much better. Like
Yeah.
like like she dated like Felicity dated Barry for a little bit, then she dated Ray Palmer for a little bit, and I'm like, both of
Ray
them are
Palmer
better.
was Yeah, Ray Palmer was perfect for her.
Yeah, I was like, both of them are better. But it's so funny watching it because they do these little things. Because this is also a show like when product placement started
Ah.
being really big in shows, and so they do these really funny things where for no reason at all, it's like, oh, let me check traffic reports with this brand new Microsoft tablet. And it'll get even dumber. It'll be like something like Task Force X. Is that a super secret government agency? Oh wow, I found everything about them on Bing. And I'm like, what? Like, like did you, I guess it's not that much of a secret then. You can just, oh wow, it's a good thing Bing is such a great search engine that you found everything you needed to know
And
about the
also,
Suicide Squad.
hey, I think the least realistic part of that is you'd find it with Bing.
Right.
Everybody's using Google. Come
Everyone's
on.
using Google. Right. Right. That's what made it even more unbelievable. Like, no one uses Bing. Stop it.
Yeah,
Stop it.
please.
Like, oh, you have like, you're in a room surrounded by like all these high end computers and giant screens and information, and you're like, yeah, yeah, yeah. But this tablet, though.
I love when Felicity, yeah, she goes and they like have to sneak her into a building so she can directly hack in, but then she uses one of those like flimsy little, yeah, it's like the screen and then the flimsy little keyboard, and I was like,
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's like, let me roll this keyboard out real quick and show you all the features of it. Also, I know you have to sneak me into this top secret government facility, but let me make sure I'm in all of my designer clothing and high heels to make it extra difficult to get from point A to point B. Like they
Now, in her defense, in that scenario, she had the big belly burger or whatever it's called
oh yeah.
outfit on. So I don't know what the shoes looked like, but at least the rest of her was comfy.
But it's so funny because they constantly catch themselves in the tropes that you expect, because they introduce Felicity as like, oh, here are these chicks that are like badass, and here's Felicity who is kind of nerdy, and immediately the entire audience is like, no, she's the badass, but like no one around them see it the way that we see it, because we're automatically like, she's the best one. Like, wow, what would they do
Yep.
without her? And it's like, and but everyone's constantly make a big deal. Well, Laurel was in court today, and look, and Sarah's back, and she's beating people up and grunting and all the, and it's just they do these things where they make it's like they try and make an island out of the super cool nerdy character that everyone will love,
Mm.
instead of it being like, just just do it, just let her be like, let her be right, let her be the center of attention, because this angst is a little bit too much, and because
Yeah.
it really did have like a soap opera feel to it, because it's like Laurel and she's angry because her sister's alive now, and 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 Oliver is alive, but she's mad at them now for cheating, even though it was 5 years ago, but she still has feelings for Oliver, and that's still her sister, and their dad is an alcoholic because of literally every reason to be like, he like they don't
Drinking,
let him win.
yeah, drinking, you get it. Yeah, yeah. Actually, I think this is a really he's one of those really great examples that I feel like humanizes the whole situation where I love that you get to see his character kind of travel through his drinking issues.
And I feel
That
bad.
yeah, I think yeah, I mean,
And I
he
feel
lived
like
through a lot.
half of his issues, even after he finds out his daughters are alive, half of his issues is because literally everyone around him is gaslighting him that Oliver isn't the Green Arrow.
Oh no, you're right.
So bad.
Yeah.
His daughters, Oliver, like literally everyone. He was like, wait, that was Oliver wearing the Green Arrow costume. They're like, that wasn't Oliver. Why would Oliver be doing that? Look, there he is. There's no one over there. You just missed Oliver. He was over there. I don't know. Like, like they're constantly. Just, he's like, I'm not.
Okay.
I'm not.
Okay. Okay. Let's focus. We can do this. I do want to make sure we talk about something serious here.
Okay.
So the fact that also he like murders a bunch of people.
Oh my god.
So
Frank Castle Queen.
yeah. Yeah, he's so Frank Castle when he starts off. That I think is, and actually is that how your run of the mill Green Arrow, do you know? Is that part of the storyline? Okay, I didn't think
Nope.
so.
It's
So
never
that's more
nope.
unique to the show.
It is. It definitely is and it's funny because like he does this they do this odd thing where and it's something that I think a lot of people do. They put their parents up on a pedestal and
Mhm.
then very quickly throughout the show you find out that both of Oliver's parents are terrible. Um
Terrible.
yeah, they're absolutely terrible, but it's funny because Oliver's whole the whole plot of the first season is him finding out, oh, my dad wasn't a great guy. And look, he put all of his friends who also weren't great people in a book. Guess I gotta kill them all. And his dad never once said, hey, Oliver, take this book, kill everyone in it.
This is your murder list.
Yeah,
Like
no, he never said that. He was like, look, I failed this city, and the following people could probably do better. And Oliver's like, I know what to do, Dad. Don't you worry. I got
That was a good
this.
knuckle pop. Well done. Yeah. It is very interesting. So like you have this super rich kid who never had to deal with his own consequences. Mommy and daddy were bailing him out of everything. And you see kind of the same thing happening with his sister. So it's interesting how he kind of comes into to play with that. But they essentially take away a lot of consequences for actions, and you kind of get the sense that he's not really building up many responsibilities. So a kid that's pretty far removed probably from a lot of struggles, and then wham, all of a sudden he goes through this big traumatic thing. The yacht happens. His dad literally shoots someone and himself in front of him so that Oliver can survive. Then he gets on an island that seems bad enough. And then there are all these people he has to deal with. And all of a sudden, you can't trust anybody.
Yeah,
There's deception, manipulation, a lot of like torture, all of these different things happening where he literally has to find ways to survive, where if you're gonna live, it's a kill or be killed kind of scenario in a lot of
right.
ways. And with all of this too, here his dad has like dropped this bomb on him that we both agree is a little ridiculous that he took it to
Yeah,
such extremes. How did he even know what the hell he was looking at? But
yeah.
anyway, it's a show.
Here's this book. I'm like,
um
that's a phone book. Like, what?
but the thing is that I could see I think they did as good of a job as you can. You got to use your like your comic book lenses, I think, to read to read through it, but it makes sense to me that all of this stuff kind of culminates together, that his moral outlook and the system he uses for right and wrong and how you respond and how you problem solve would become so skewed that he literally says, "Oh, here are these huge failures. These people are terrible, i.e., kill them if they don't change."
Right. And the thing that's funny, the thing that's so interesting about it, the only thing that doesn't work for the show is that they keep doing these flashbacks to the island and you're thinking, oh, this is why he's the way he is. But they keep showing him learn all of these life lessons. Like, oh,
Mm.
on the island, you got to learn to trust people. And then, oh, now he's working for Amanda Waller. And now he's in Hong Kong. And now he's in Russia. And so he becomes this really good, well rounded character throughout all of these 5 seasons worth of flashbacks. And then the moment he comes back, he's like, no, I've learned nothing. I'm gonna go back to killing people. Like, and I'm like, wait a minute. Wait, what happened to your character development, sir?
I think what's weird too is that so Diggle and Felicity are really interesting counterpoints for him to kind of bounce him off of, because you're following his character, and so you're down for it, right? You're riding this Robin Hood wave. We're post theoretically COVID pandemic. We're all for killing off terrible people. I mean, like at this point,
At
in a
this point,
fictional world like this, it's a
it was
little
pre-COVID
cathartic.
though. It was pre-COVID.
No, I'm
So,
talking about watching it now.
watching it
Watching it
now, it's
now,
like, you know what?
slightly
You did fail
cathartic in
this
some
city.
ways, since it's yeah, it's like,
You did fail
okay.
this city. You can be vaccinated. Like what? Like, come
But
on.
but then, please, people know I don't condone killing people. I'm making jokes. Please don't. Let's not let this
I'm
go
talking
viral.
about a
Anyway,
comic book show. I don't know what you're talking about.
but then you have these counterpoints, which I think are really helpful to kind of remind you of the real world, because we're watching this fictional character in this fictional world, and we're like, yeah. And then Diggle's like, I've actually done war and this, that, and the other, and here's how what you're doing is off, bro. And then you have Felicity, who is not on board, but she's around because she wants to essentially find his stepdad, who had been helping with stuff. So,
Right.
but it's weird because even they get a little skewed being around him, and in some ways I think they start, I don't know if I would say condoning, but I, it's funny how you can be around something enough that it kind of normalizes for you. And so it seems like they're bothered. They tell him they're only going to help so much because of the killing. And then they start helping more. It's like the foot in the door, with like, salespeople. It's like, over time, they
Well,
seem to acclimate to it a bit.
and they do kind of a good job in the later episodes in that first season of he only killed him because he was gonna shoot him first. Like they did
Mm.
kind of start
See,
shifting it because
and it
before,
was more of a, well, I only kill them if there's no other option.
right, because before he was just walking up to him and it's like, you failed this city,
Yep. He was
three bows
snapping
in the
necks
chest.
left and right.
And it
Yeah,
wasn't,
yeah.
he didn't dial it back until a worse
Ooh.
archer came around. He was like,
Oh,
oh,
right.
that what people think I do?
Yeah.
And it's like, that's exactly what you do.
That's actually a great point. I think you're right that is a big turning point for him in a lot of that. And they show a bit of the turning point in Diggle kind of. I think I love Diggle's character. I
Oh
was
yeah,
mentioning
he's great.
before. He helps process through some things. He honestly, I think, turns into a better vigilante / hero over time. But he kind of helps Oliver with processing through that first match, because he gets so thrown off, because on the
Mm-hmm.
island it was just like, you're acting, you're reacting, but now he's in a
Mm-hmm.
place where he can sit and think. He's reconnecting to people. He's got more of a life. And so it really throws him off his game when this other arrow comes along, or this other archer comes along. And I think you're right. I think when he's able to come back out of that and reconnect to doing his work, it changes him, because he essentially is seeing a reflection of himself, and he did not like it.
And they do such an interesting job with him too, because like in other superhero shows, I feel like you see them interact with a lot more people. With Barry Allen, you're constantly seeing him talk with people at the police station. Then you're constantly
Mm.
seeing him talk to all the different people with Team Flash. But one thing they never really do a lot of times in these superhero shows is just give them regular friends to hang out with. Right?
Mm.
And you don't really see that with Oliver at all. He gets off the island. He has Tommy, his best friend. He has Laurel, his ex-girlfriend, and then he has his family members, his stepdad,
Mm-hmm.
Walter, also cool.
Yeah, I like Walter.
The
He's black, of course,
the
because
wow, they
he's a
really
side character.
wow. I didn't even think
You
the
didn't even
mom.
count
I
him.
didn't even think about that. Like, damn. Yeah, because before he was the mom's new husband, he was the dad's best friend.
Oh my god, so incestuous. Is this the most incestuous show?
No, Game of Thrones.
Oh no, you're right.
Yeah.
This is a close second.
No. Not
No,
even close.
no.
Not
I don't
even
know. It keeps getting worse.
Ever
I don't
since they're
know.
actually related, and it's like, ugh, this
I
is
mean,
more just soap opera type Riverdale energy. But, like,
okay, so Flash gets closer is what you're saying,
yeah, yeah,
since they were adopted siblings.
that's okay, yeah, right, yeah, yeah, okay, I get yeah, wow, they do that. Is that a trope? Arrowverse, wow, they really point in one direction. Um, but yeah, what was I saying? Yeah, so you you don't see Oliver interact with regular people at all.
Mm,
It's either people that have been missing him or people that despise him and
yeah.
nothing really in between. And one character that really sticks out on this show that I really feel for is his younger sister, Thea,
Yeah, poor
because
Thea.
and one thing that I really cannot stand with Oliver is he's so judgmental when he comes back. It's like, oh yeah, I've been gone for 5 years. You thought I was dead. Our dad is dead. And as soon as you see her like just like drinking a beer, you're like, what are you doing? What is this? Like, bro, you've been dead for 5 years.
Not to mention, do you remember what he was like before that?
Right. Right. Like it wasn't like he was out
Mhm.
here being the saintly wonderful big brother. Like he was
Nah.
like, and all of a sudden he comes back and she's older and dealing with things the best way that she
Yeah.
can. She really
She
is going through.
actually yeah, her character's really cool too. And one of the things I like about this show, I know really we're just focusing on season 1 because it took 30 years just to watch that season. Seriously, so long.
So long.
Um
It was the
so long.
flashback. It was the flashbacks. It made it 5 times
I
longer.
might have fast forwarded through some of those, but anyway, um, so actually, one of the things I love about this show is so many different characters have their own like heroes in training essentially storyline. I mean,
Hmm.
you've got Diggle, you've got Felicity, Thea goes through her own. Not to mention you've got Roy Harper already in season 1 of this
Yeah.
too, um, becoming quickly very hyper focused on Arrow, and understandably so because it's his neighborhood that is always getting hit, and he want so yeah, I feel really bad for Thea, and she has some really cool progression over the show that maybe in another episode we can talk about. But
Yeah.
yeah, I feel bad for her too. And it is interesting because Oliver, he wants people to accept some very huge changes in himself, and
Yeah.
yet he is, in most, if not all cases, the first to judge and to react and to actually
Yeah.
implant himself into situations that aren't really his, that he kind of steps into and essentially puts in his 2 cents or manipulates the situation in some way. And part of that also might have to do with the fact of, like, with the island. I mean, he was having to pay attention to all the different things and
Hmm.
tracking so much. It's probably really hard, just like, I mean, it's, a different scenario, but Diggle in some ways compares things to combat. It's a shift and a
Absolutely.
change coming back, and I think that's some of the struggle and the what's coming off as judgmental from him. I think he's also responding to things he sees in the
Right.
way he would respond, at least in some ways, like he was on the island, and then
That's
that
true.
comes off as a lot of judgment. I think Thea does an excellent job of getting through to him in different ways, of pointing out that he is judging her and he is leaping to action on things that are not really his to control. And I love seeing that. I mean, it takes them a while, understandably, but I love seeing them just keep coming back to each other. And you're right, he has people who really care, who've really
Hmm.
missed him, but of course they miss someone who's not there anymore. Or he has people who despise him, who literally are like, "I wish you died."
Yeah.
Um, but what's really cool is he has people in his life that keep being there and keep coming back because it's
Hmm.
such a tricky situation that they're all in. You
Yeah.
can just tell, even though his parents, this is another example. Even though his parents were terrible people when it
Right.
came to the city, they actually, in some ways, seem like they were very caring, loving parents who were very
Right.
connected to their children.
Which is something I always love seeing. I think I brought it up when we did the Shang-Chi issue, like how it's like, yeah, someone can be a terrible parent, but still actually love their kids. And it's
Yeah.
one of those things that happens in this multiple times because you see um uh Malcolm Merlin, he loves
Oh,
Tommy.
yeah.
And then later
Hmm.
on, you find out he also loves Thea because Thea's actually his daughter. And like, you,
The incest.
oh God, there it is again. And yeah, you
Oh, man.
see,
And in season one, at one point, Thea thinks that Tommy Merlin's into her. Can you imagine if they had. Whoa.
uh,
And it wouldn't have been their
they
fault. They
just
didn't
need to
know.
meet like honest. And I think one of the big thing morals of season one is don't be afraid to go out and meet new circles of people. Go make friends.
Mm,
Go make
yeah.
friends outside your house, away from your company. Maybe
Yeah.
make friends at church. Maybe not church. I don't know. Maybe you could have one or two friends at church, but don't get like weird about it.
Yeah.
And
But
like
see, I mean, that's what to his credit, Oliver did that. He said, "Hey Felicity, can you check out this bullet-ridden laptop for me? I dropped it on the floor. That's where the holes came from."
the excuses are so bad. I got a friend of mine, and we're doing a scavenger hunt, but he's
Oh
cheating
yeah.
using his friends at the government's super secret decryption key.
So I'm going to cheat and have you help me.
And I'll give you a bottle of wine if you can open it for me.
Or the one where he takes the drug, the street drug, and he's like, "Hey, can you figure out this hangover cure for me?"
Like
Why is it in a syringe?
it was
I didn't
yeah.
have a container to hold it.
I remember watching Batman Begins and being like, wow, Bruce is really bad at lying to Lucius Fox. Oliver Queen is so much worse. Bruce
He's
is
so
like, oh, let
bad.
me have this high-tech suit. I'm spelunking. And it's like, well, that sounds pretty unbelievable, but okay. But that's just worse. It's like, oh, here's this thing. It's in a syringe. I didn't have a cup to put it in, so here. It's like, what on earth?
So funny.
So
So
unhinged. I love
bad.
it.
So bad.
Love it. But one thing I do also love is when Oliver comes back, and I can't remember who says it, but they talk about how the Oliver that we knew might
The
not be the
doctor.
one that came off that island. It was a really, and I really
Mhm.
liked that quote because basically it's showing how, like, listen, traumatic experiences can have a permanent change on someone.
Mhm.
And sometimes it's not one of those things where you you get to this sweet spot where you're like, I'm past it. No,
Mhm.
it's a constant cycle. It's a
Yep.
constant change. I remember a I was in a car accident last year. And I remember, even though it was not like a major car accident, but it was enough that jolted me that even now when I drive, I'm a little bit, just the tiniest bit skittish
Mm.
on the road, even now because of that accident. Right. And I'm thinking about that like as something honestly pretty small compared to some of the things that
Oh yeah.
people actually go through. And it's so disheartening whenever you think about somebody and they're like, ugh, I wish they'd just get over that. And you're thinking, but that's not something that's just easy to get over. As a matter of fact,
Yep.
they might not ever get over it, right?
And so I think that's one of the things that I think can be particularly tricky is what is it to get over something? And I think that if you're looking at something from the point of view of we want it to be as if that thing never happened. There are plenty of people that are not going to get to that point where they recover in a way where it's almost like you wiped the slate clean. And if you think about it, that kind of makes sense. I mean, our brains are meant to store information, and in particular, very important information, you really want to hold on to that. And so if there's
Mhm.
something very intense that's happened, especially if it's life threatening in some way, traumatic in some way, your brain's going to want to help you out and
Right.
maneuver those things. And so unfortunately, sometimes that doesn't work out. Sometimes we need support to kind of find a way through, but it makes
Mhm.
sense if your brain adjusts and shifts things from there to integrate that information. Now,
Yeah.
sometimes the integration doesn't go smoothly, and that's where things like, we've got a number of different evidence based treatments for trauma that can be really helpful for how do we process through so that the brain doesn't get stuck. Because
Mhm.
sometimes it starts treating, let's say, okay, you talked about that car accident. Well, let's say that anytime you got in a car, your brain was responding as if you were like milliseconds from an accident. Well, that's actually going to make things worse for you in a lot of ways. You're not going to want to
Mhm.
drive. You're going to be more likely to get in other accidents because you're on too high of alert.
Mhm.
So sometimes the brain gets kind of stuck in that trauma mode, and there are treatments to help kind of move through. But you're right, in a lot of ways, that recovery isn't necessarily, hey, it's like nothing ever happened, but more of a, hey, that happened and I can still drive my car and I can go and do the things. And so it was the doctor at the start to his mom, who was like the Oliver that I think it was something like prepare yourself. The Oliver that came back isn't, it might not be the Oliver who left.
Right.
And that was, yeah, I think a really good introduction to everything. And I mean, you can kind of see as it goes along, it's still Oliver,
Mhm.
and it's also not still Oliver. I mean,
Right.
there's still clearly Oliver there, and yet he's also drastically different.
Mhm.
Um, which I also think is very interesting in terms of what makes us who we are. I
Right.
mean, there are definitely these things about his personality that are still kind of there.
Mhm.
I think actually at one point he talks to who does he talk to? um Laurel, I think yes, he was talking to Laurel, and he actually talked about how um essentially the island took away all the muck that hid who he was, and she always saw the person underneath.
Mhm.
And so I thought that was an interesting description to essentially say, like, yeah, there are these parts of him that are constant throughout, and yet also all of these drastic changes.
Right. Right. And yeah, I really thought that was interesting, but I also thought that they did a really good job of showing everyone's reaction
Yeah.
around because going back to Detective Lance, he's been mourning the loss of his daughter for so long, and all of a sudden the guy that he blamed for it
Hmm.
is back and
Yeah.
alive. And this is before we find out that Sarah's also alive.
Mm,
This is before that. And so it's just nothing but anger. It's
yep.
nothing but anger and resentment and pain. And then on the other side of that, you have Oliver's mom, who secretly was the one that knew the boat was going to sink and all this stuff. And so she has all of these emotions going on. And then Walter also has emotions going on because he's trying to not feel bad for essentially
Mhm.
definitely choosing to move on after Oliver had seemingly passed, and all of a
Yep.
sudden Oliver's back alive again. And so they do a really good job. The only person I feel like really handles it like no problem is his friend Tommy.
Oh, yeah.
When he's like,
Tommy just takes everything as it comes
it's been this many days since
for a
you've
while.
gotten laid last, so I suggest we do this. And I
Yep.
do love the Twilight shade that they threw at him in that one episode because it's like, oh,
Oh, yeah.
you should hook up with the girl that looks like the chick from Twilight. And Oliver's like, what's Twilight? And I think Tommy's like, you're better off not knowing.
Yep. I love how they throw those things in that first season
Yeah.
where I forget what it is, but he's like, "I actually got that reference."
Yeah.
He's like trying to catch up on things. I
Yeah.
love all that. So, okay, as he goes, so clearly he's like more Frank Castle, like vengeful, whatever, anti-hero, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Um, so clearly that's where he starts. So as he is going through the season and kind of readjusting and everything, where do you think he turns into like an actual hero? Because obviously, like at first, there's like a whole death count and he doesn't really
It's
fit the bill at first.
I did keep watching past season 1 to try and figure out when it
Mm,
was. It was season 2. Because what happens is at the end of season 1, Tommy Tommy ends
mm,
up dying, but before that, Tommy looks at Oliver and calls him a murderer. And it's something that just rings out in Oliver's head into the second season. And so he's like, my best friend died calling me a murderer. I have to do something that would make him proud.
mm,
And so he changes up his thing. It's like, we got to do it differently. No more killing.
mm.
Um,
So you know
and
what's
he
interesting though?
kind of sticks to it.
He kind of sticks to it. Yeah.
Eh,
Well,
yeah, I definitely
he
saw him.
kills less.
Yeah, he kills less. Yeah, he kills less. I definitely saw him snap someone's neck in season 5, like first episode. Like, oh, there he is.
Oh, well, like he kind of ebbs and flows, right? Because Ra's al Ghul kind of screws him up, and then like yeah, he ebbs and flows with stuff.
Yeah,
Um, so what's interesting is it's kind of in the eye of the beholder, because yeah, I mean, there's definitely like in terms of the people who he has most immediately surrounding him. I think you're right that they see him as a necessary evil, or sometimes even someone that they don't want anything to do with and want to stop. It kind of vacillates depending on the situation, for a while until he stops, yeah, the body count. But the people in the glades, because they kind of show people reacting and responding after, maybe it's season 2, because you asked me to watch a little bit of season 2, so maybe it's season 2, I can't remember where, but the people in the glades actually seem like they saw him as a hero
right.
a lot earlier.
Uh huh.
So like early season 1, they're like, yeah.
Well,
Because they were the people most directly being harmed by all of these other folks. It's kind of
yeah,
interesting because it depends kind of what your moral code is with those sorts of things. And
right.
that's not to, that might sound like judgment of the folks in the glades, and it's not meant to be. I think it's, for them, there's more of a direct life or death happening. I mean, people literally died based on what those folks were doing. So it's understandable that see they see it more kind of
And
in that
it's
vein.
it's a gray area that's still very much set. Comic books are still just a reflection of reality,
Mm,
because I mean the people in the glades are sitting here and they're saying, "Wow, this guy's killing all the people that were killing us."
right.
Right?
So for them, it's kind of like the island for Oliver. For them, there's a kill or be killed kind of thing going
Right. It's like,
on.
"Oh, that guy's killing the people that were killing us." And I mean, honestly, that's how people look at the death penalty to this day, you know? It's like, "Oh,
Mm.
well, they were killing people, so it's okay that they killed them," right? Like that's justice, right? That's justice. And it
That there were air quotes for anyone who's not watching the
yes,
YouTube when he said
absolutely.
that.
Yes, there's
Air
I
quote
did the
justice.
quote unquote yes, thank you. Thank you for making sure that, because people are like, "Oh wow, I didn't know he was like that." But no, no. I love Frank Castle. Like, no, it's it's bad. But it's very interesting because like it kind of reminded me of the Narrows in Gotham, right? Where
Mm,
the people that live there, they're just fighting for their life day in
yeah.
and day out. Batman comes along and it's like he's beating the living daylights
Hmm.
out of these villains and criminals and stuff. And I'm willing to bet some of the people in the Narrows are like, really wish that guy wouldn't get paroled. Could Batman have maybe
Yep.
hit him a couple more times? Like,
Yeah.
there
Yep.
had to be someone out there
Yep.
that was thinking that. I'm sure there's people in
True.
Gotham
Yeah.
that think that all the time. Like, can Batman please just kind of
Yeah.
like, like,
I I love how you're hitting on another way that this really is just Batman
yeah,
in another version. Not to mention also, you know, if you compare it to where is it that Flash lives?
Central City.
Central City.
Yeah.
So what when they combine, you kind of get the dark and light, kind of
Yeah.
like Gotham Metropolis kind of
Oh,
thing going
and
on.
they
They
totally do
love
that.
me.
They totally
They
do that with
so
our
do that, and
Arrow
they
and
should.
Flash. They totally
They
do that.
really they just desperately wanted to do a Batman
They
show.
could. I know. I know. It's just yeah. And it was yeah, because and it's funny because at that time, of course, Gotham was coming on over at Fox, and Gotham was giving you
Mm,
everything except Batman. It's like, look, y'all,
yep.
it's Vicky Vale's niece. You enjoying that? It's like Vicky Vale's aunt. It's like Vicky Vale's aunt, and look, it's Black Mask's uncle. There he is. He's gonna have a nephew one day, and that nephew gonna go toe to toe with who you really want to see. That guy's a little kid right now, but his friend Selena, she's also a little kid, and guess what? She just got a black whip for a toy, and that's probably gonna be a thing one day. Like I just, so I'm almost getting everything I want if you combine three different shows.
Yep.
I'm
Exactly.
finally
It's like,
getting
all
what
right,
I want.
take take Arrow, plop him into
Yeah,
Gotham.
just throw them there and then do all that other stuff.
Perfection.
But then
Yeah,
don't worry about
perfection.
some of that. And then we're good. We're good. And it was funny because you had the Arrowverse, you had Gotham on one channel, you had Titans on HBO, and they were
Mm.
literally giving us everything except Batman. They even in the Arrowverse, they did a Batwoman TV show. Bruce is gone.
Oh
No
yeah.
one knows where Bruce is. Like, come on. Why do you hate us? One thing I do appreciate though about Arrow is going back through it, you definitely see character growth.
Oh yeah.
You definitely see character growth. He does start shying away more away from the book and start concentrating more on helping people
Yes.
instead of I got to kill the people in this book. He's like,
Yep.
I have to protect the people in this city. And it flows into him
Mhm.
becoming the mayor and trying to do things right on during the light and at
Yep.
night. And and so yeah, I do respect that they did do a good job allowing him to grow as a character as well as all
Yeah.
the people around him, because one thing that I
Yeah.
really like that they did with Diggle in particular is Diggle went off. He went and had a
Yep.
family and he was like, I'm out. I'm out.
Deuces.
I got a
Yep.
kid to
Mhm.
raise and my wife isn't in the Suicide Squad anymore. It was a whole thing. Um and so I really like the way that they did that where he actually was a character in this show that had a line. He's like, that's my line
Yep.
and I'm sticking to it. It wasn't that
Yep.
I just can't say no to this city and I have to fight and give it my all and ruin every relationship I have. Diggle's like, actually, I got a wife and kid at home. I got to go tuck my baby in. You have fun shooting bow and arrows. Diggle out. Like he would dip, and I
I
always
I
respected that.
and I think that that's him and Felicity in particular. I think all the characters around Oliver, he they're like he was saying that the island stripped it away so you could see better, but I think there was always this very caring person underneath who really valued what the people around him had to offer. And I mean, he's stubborn, don't get me wrong. It takes him a while, but he really takes in what all of these people are trying to do for him, and he I think in particular, Diggle was just so important in terms of him being able to become a hero.
Hmm.
Diggle helps him be able to relate himself after these experiences to the people around him who could not relate. He helped him be able to put things in perspective a lot better.
Hmm.
And yeah, I think one of the things I really love about Diggle is he has these really healthy boundaries that you rarely see when it comes to all this superhero stuff
Right.
related to what he's willing to do and not do, and he communicates it very clearly and succinctly, and he sticks to his guns in a way that most, if not all the time, is just like you just really respect.
Yeah.
Um, and I think Felicity, I mean, she too like, has quite a bit of that as well. She had kind of her lines that she wouldn't cross, and um, they her character ends up being a little more goofy because they want her like drooling over Arrow as he exercises on the bar and whatnot. But despite all that, I mean, she's a very intelligent and just a really big force of nature in a lot of ways. And um I love seeing her and Diggle and how they impact Oliver and how he develops into the Green Arrow.
The three of them have such a really good ebb and flow that
Yeah.
if one or even two of them is struggling, there's always one of them that's pointing true north. And
Yes. Mhm.
and it's something that often gets overlooked, especially when it comes to like superhero teams. It's the value of having someone who, at least one person on the team, who has their sights where they should be, and people can
Absolutely.
kind of gather in almost like ducks flying in a V. And
Yep.
we don't know who's leading the charge right now, but they all get their opportunities where it's like, no, they're right
Yes.
about this, and you two need to trust that one, whether it's
Yep.
Oliver that's right, or whether it's Felicity that's right, or whether it's Diggle
Mhm.
that's right. It's almost like a rotating thing where it's like, okay,
Yep.
one person sees the picture the way it should be seen, and they need to put their trust in that person
Yep.
temporarily.
I wholeheartedly agree. I think that there's this really great teamwork that happens. Um, and unlike Batman, I mean, there are times where Oliver can really struggle with that and he pulls away and he ends up doing his solo thing and then he always comes back around to the team thing. So don't get me wrong. I mean, he's got the Bruce Wayne thing in there, but
Right,
with Bruce, Bruce is always at the forefront. You know who's leading the pack.
right.
Yes, there's other people, but
Bruce has to be proven
teamwork is
wrong.
exactly teamwork. He more assists the team. I mean, he kind of Justice Leagues everything, right? Where he's
Yeah,
like he's an honorary member
foots the
because
bill.
they need him. Yeah, because he fits the bill. Exactly. So I do like how in Arrow there is this wonderful team approach.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Just like our podcast.
Yay! Thanks for nerding out with us. I'm clinical psychologist Dr. Amelia Brown.
And I'm educator and comic aficionado Keaton Hopkins. Check out my TV and movie reviews on YouTube at Team JVS. Check out our website at bat-therapy.com, our Bat Therapy YouTube channel, and follow us on social media. And don't forget our Patreon page at patreon.com/battherapy. See you next week. Same bat time, same bat channel.